One of the most common objections to treatment in eating disorder recovery that I hear is that the person believes that they are not sick enough to receive care or treatment for their eating disorder. Unfortunately, this is a myth that is causing severe harm to individuals struggling with an eating disorder. If you are preoccupied with thoughts about food and or your body, spending a significant amount of time thinking about food or how to change your body or socially isolating as a result of your relationship with food or your body, you deserve treatment for your eating disorder. Here are three of the most common reasons that I hear people say that they believe that they are not sick enough to receive eating disorder treatment. And frankly, none of these are true and quite dangerous. My name is Shena, and I am a registered dietitian specializing in the care of persons with eating disorders. And if that's something that you're interested in learning more about, definitely click that subscribe button. I drop new episodes every Wednesday. Okay, so the first and most common reason that I hear people say they're not sick enough to get care for their eating disorder is that they are not a low enough body weight. Absolutely cannot be further from the truth. Disorders do not discriminate. We can have a severely dangerous and even deadly eating disorder at any body weight. In fact, unfortunately, those at the highest risk for medical complications from an eating disorder are individuals that exist in a larger body. Only 6% of people with an eating disorder are actually clinically underweight, meaning a BMI of under 18.5%. This is extraordinarily problematic from both a diagnosis perspective, the person seeking out treatment, and unfortunately, these conditions reimbursed by insurance. Actual low BMI, which is often classified as the end-all be-all for who should receive treatment for an eating disorder, is incredibly faulty. Low BMI is usually the exception rather than the norm. Individuals in larger body weights can experience higher complications, such as changes in their heart rate, changes in their blood pressure, which can be life-threatening. And the reason why is these individuals often undergo a greater amount of weight loss in a shorter period of time than individuals in BMI bodies. And this is for the multitude of reasons that we've explored, such as just not believing that they're sick enough, not having access to care, etc. Regardless of your body weight, eating disorders do not discriminate. We can have just as many health complications at any body weight on the spectrum, from malnutrition and starvation. The second reason that people believe that they are not sick enough to receive eating disorder treatment is that their labs are fine. This unfortunately cannot be further from the truth. Labs often do not ever change, even if a person is experiencing extreme clinical emaciation. And if they do change, they are often the very last thing to change when someone is experiencing malnutrition. And by that time, unfortunately, some of the damage that we see in these skewed labs can sometimes be unreversible at that time. So we can have perfectly fine labs and be in extreme danger and extremely clinically emaciated. So labs being fine is not a reason to not get medical treatment for your eating disorder. The third reason that I often see people saying they're not sick enough is that they don't have X, Y, and Z symptom. So for example, they don't purge, they don't restrict their food, etc. Does not mean that we are not suffering both physically and emotionally from a detrimental eating disorder. There is always going to be an individual that shows a different amount and frequency of clinical symptoms than you. And eating disorders, unfortunately, are extraordinarily competitive. So it's very easy to justify our eating disorder because we don't do X, Y, and Z. But if that eating disorder is having clinical symptoms for you, as well as psychological symptoms, and taking up a significant portion of your life, regardless of which symptoms you are experiencing and how frequently you are sick enough. The one common trait that I see in every single individual with an eating disorder is that they will list off a myriad of very clinically complex eating disorder symptoms and say, well, at least I don't do this, so therefore I am not sick enough to have an eating disorder. join the club. This is actually the most common trait of any individual I've ever met from an eating disorder. Practicing for the past decade exclusively with eating disorders, the one common trait every single person that comes in with an eating disorder has is they believe that they are not sick enough or not as sick as someone else, and so therefore the treatment may not be necessary for them. This is extraordinarily incorrect and dangerous. If an eating disorder is plaguing your life, you deserve care. You are worthy of care. You should seek out a team of qualified professionals as soon as possible to help you determine what level of care is most appropriate for you. By the way, I do see patients one-on-one, and if you're interested in scheduling a session with me, you can click on the link below to book the appointment. If you are interested in learning more about eating disorders, definitely check out my website at peaceandnutrition.com, which is the only place on the internet that I can provide you with uncensored, raw content on eating disorders and eating disorder recovery. If you found this information helpful, please consider liking, subscribing, and sharing with a friend.